Let me ask you both, since you're right in my line of sight, Hiba Husseini, what is the two-state solution with a twist? What is the plan for the Holy Land as you have both outlined?
Indeed, thank you. The Holy Land with a twist is a proposal, an umbrella, an idea out of the box, very innovative, to enable the two-state solution through a confederal arrangement, whereby two sovereign states enter into the Confederation together, state recognition of the state of Palestine as a sovereign state. Israel and Palestine then enter into this confederal arrangement because the Confederation provides this vehicle for the two to realize their strategic interests, maintain their presence on the land, and share their future together.
So, Yossi Beilin, you've been, around the table where it happens. Why is this, or is this, more easy to get past the consensus and public opinion than the official two-state solution as viewed by Oslo? What makes this, in your mind, more of a goer than the previous ones which have failed?
Well, it is much more for the decision makers. For them, the current situation in which if you make peace, you have to evacuate about 500,000 Israelis from the West Bank is politically very, very difficult. Although theoretically this is the right thing to do.
You're still sticking by that?
Of course, it was a mistake to build in the settlements from the day one in 67, 68, and it is a mistake today, but this is a reality. The settlers are saying, forget about the two-state solution, it is over, because we are all over. And even supporters...
And that's true.
Not that we have to forget it, but they are all over. And we are saying, even if you are all over, we are suggesting that under the Confederation, the Israelis who will find themselves in the Palestinian future state, and it is about 200,000 Israelis, will have the right to choose between going back to the sovereign Israel and remaining wherever they are. Nobody will touch them. In a situation in which they are permanent residents of Palestine and remain Israeli citizens, and the same number of Palestinian citizens who would like to live in Israel will be allowed to do that in the context of the arrangement of the Israelis who will live in the
So you're saying potentially a number, let's say 200,000, which is a number you floated, of Israelis stay in the settlements, but they abide by Palestinian rules, 100%. Although they are Israeli citizens. Stick with me. But the Palestinians, either from the occupied West Bank or Gaza, a similar number could come to Israel. Right. Who's going to accept that?
Well, I believe that this is the main obstacle to peace, not for Netanyahu and the extremists in his government, Ben Gvir and the others, but for people who want to have peace. The Gantz of this world, the Lapid of this world, the Golan of this world, they would like to make peace, and they understand that the partition of the land is the only solution since ever. But the issue of the evacuation is the biggest obstacle in order to make peace. So when people are speaking now, leaders, and I'm very glad to see it, that again, that the only solution is the two-state, and even some of them are recognizing the Palestinian state. They don't tell us how are they going to do that. And we are suggesting something. And this is not the only twist in our story.
I'll get back to the next twist, but first I want to ask you, Hiba Husseini, because I think there's not really an Israeli consensus, much less a Palestinian consensus. The war has radicalized all sides to a point where, the idea of a peaceful coexistence seems to be far away on the horizon. Do you think that a Palestinian state would, or the precursor, would accept all the settlers to stay? Do you think they can be trusted to abide by Palestinian laws?
Well, this is very challenging indeed. I think the crux here is that for this occupation to end, for us to realize our independence and statehood and right to self-determination, if it means that we have to accept a certain number of permanent residents. They will no longer be settlers. They will become permanent residents, law-abiding permanent residents. And this is very challenging indeed. And if they don't accept, they have the option to stay in the state of Israel through the swap arrangement.
Swaps of land or swaps of people?
Land, of land. No.
Yeah.
No, we don't propose to swap people.
Yeah. So, you know, right now, your prime minister and the extremists in his government are basically floating plans to annex the occupied West Bank, which essentially is what you're talking about right now, almost as a answer, as a response to the various Western and, of course, Arab nations, which are saying that in anger, later this month, they're going to recognize a Palestinian state. It's almost like they're going to, you know, annex maybe gradually, at least this is what's being reported, as a way to, you know, gradually pull back in return for, you know, it's this endless game of give and take, so to speak.
But it is not new. And I mean, the annexation of the West Bank in Gaza is a direct punishment to Israel. I mean, this is what we need now, to have millions of Palestinians under our occupation, that we will be in charge of everything. I mean, what happened in Oslo is that at least for 5 years, which became more than 30, it was the Palestinians, with the help of the world, took the care for themselves. The success is partial. But Israel was out. Now to get back, it is really crazy, and I don't believe that it will happen because of that.
Do you believe that it could happen? I mean, do you believe these threats are real? Because we've been seeing ever since October 7th an increase in settler violence, aided and abetted in many instances by the Israeli police, the IDF, under the, you know, authority of the extreme ministers, Ben Gvir anyway. It's happening. I mean, there's gradual destruction and increasing incursion into the West Bank, the increasing expelling or fleeing of Palestinians from the West Bank. It's happening right now. Do you see it as a critical moment that, because Netanyahu said we're going to bury any idea of a Palestinian state?
Indeed. I mean, that's the government of Israel's position, of course, and it's very extreme. I mean, remember, we have 3 million Palestinians in the West Bank. And indeed, we have around 50,000 Palestinians who have been expelled from the refugee camps in Jenin and Tulkarem, and they have been moved to the heart of the West Bank.
And that's just in the last few months?
Just the last few months, of course, and not to mention what's happening, as you correctly have pointed out, the Jordan Valley and the Bedouin community and the attack, onslaught on the natural resources, you know, so forth, and the shepherds and the olive trees and all of that. But I think annexation for Israel means annexation without people. And for...
what do you mean?
I mean that if they want to annex the West Bank, they would like to expel the Palestinians from the side to Jordan. So that is far-fetched. That is very unlikely to happen. Again, these are bargaining chips, bargaining positions. Okay, land may be swapped here and there. So the future will not stand to see that there will be full, total annexation of the West Bank.
You say bargaining chips and all the rest of it, and these are, you know, it's the current sort of, everybody's talking about something and never quite sure what's going to happen. But according to the Israeli journalist Barak Ravid of Axios, a senior Emirati official has told him that the choice before Israel right now is annexation or integration, i.e. you saw last night that in a rare public statement, the UAE basically warned Israel of crossing a red line, that there'd be no, it would risk the Abraham Accords if it was actually to annex.
The whole deal was that Israel will give up on annexation, and that there will be good relations, normal relations between Israel and some Arab states. If Israel now says forget about the issue of annexation, meaning we will annex now, it means that they will be free to forget about normalization.
The Arab countries you're talking about, and most especially Saudi Arabia.
This will be more than crazy if Israel goes for it.
If you wouldn't mind
we have
me
some
saying,
lunatics in our government.
You have some what?
Some lunatics in our government. They are a minority, thanks heaven.
But they're powerful. In other words, the settlers are running the government.
They're not running the government, but of course they are having power much more than their formal power in the Knesset. And since Netanyahu did a huge mistake, if I can call it a mistake, to invite them to his cabinet after promising on TV that he will never put people like Ben-Gvir in the cabinet.
I know, but it's done, and look what they're doing.
Yeah, but it will not get to the crazy situation in which we are going to annex the West Bank, give up on any normalization.
But could it bury a two-state solution?
This cannot prevent a two-state solution. The two-state solution eventually will be a reality, because if we don't have a two-state solution, we will not have Israel as a Jewish and democratic state, and the Palestinians will not have the right, the way to fulfill the right for self-determination. Both of us cannot give up on a two-state solution.
Yossi Beilin, your partner in this, calls members of the government lunatics, and they have been described as such by other people as well. Do you believe you have your own lunatics in the Palestinian political consensus, most certainly in Hamas, in Gaza, and those who apparently can't seem to push the political ball along in the recognized Palestinian Authority?
Well, lunacy is one tough word.
I mean, obstructionist.
Obstructionist is probably the more accurate term in this respect. I mean, Hamas comes at it from a whole different perspective, ideologically driven, disagreeing with the PLO on the entire Oslo process way back then in 1993, 92, 93. So from their perspective, the two-state solution undermines Palestinian national interest, the whole the right to self-determination. So, I mean, yes, we do have internal divisions in Palestine, and we have obstructionists, and we have people who get in the way of fulfilling peace. But I think the dynamics are changing now. Things are changing. The Gaza war is so horrific. And the powers of armed struggle are shifting and changing.
Look, Netanyahu keeps saying that the idea is to destroy Hamas. The Arab states, in a very unprecedented joint statement, called for Hamas to disarm and give up any notion of power. That's never happened publicly before in that regard. It was just a month or so ago. Do you think that it will disarm and give up its aspirations to any kind of political or even military presence? And do you think that that Israel can destroy Hamas in the way that the government says?
Not in this way. Not in this way. And I don't think that we should sit and watch what is happening and say, okay, until Hamas is gone, the same situation will continue and we will have a war forever in Gaza. No, it is nonsense. What has to happen is that we should demand that Hamas will never be part of the government in Gaza. This is, I think, more than reasonable to demand. If they don't move, then we will have to do our best in order to try and release the hostages and leave the place, not to remain there on a square kilometer, in order for the Palestinian Authority to enter Gaza. This is the only solution, which is reasonable, which is possible. I talked about it with people in the region. I talked about it with Abu Mazen, who in the past rejected such a return to the Gaza Strip on our tanks, so-called. Yeah. Today he is ready. I think that we should go for this rather than to say, okay, until there is no problem with Hamas, we are waiting and watching.
And to you, Hiba, the US is also unclear about what it wants. I mean, every day we read new things that come out of allegedly the White House, the Trump Riviera plan for Gaza. Marco Rubio, it's again been reported by the press, has told the Israelis that the US wouldn't stand in the way of annexation of the West Bank. I mean, what can anything happen without US support for what you guys are saying and the general public consensus around, or the global consensus around a two-state solution?
We need the support of the US, we need the support of Europe, we need the support of the Arab states, the international community. I mean, this conflict cannot be resolved by Israelis and Palestinians alone, because it has become not only a regional but also a global conflict in a sense. Yes, but I think the position of the US has to be more even keel, and it has to take into account the fact that Palestinian interests and Israeli interests have to be treated equally and have to be addressed in a meaningful way to realize peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians, for the region, for the international, for the globe in this respect. So I think shifting opinion from night and day it does not help anybody. Statements on a Riviera do not help anybody. Statements on displacing and removing Gazans into the Sinai and continuing this famine and starvation and really atrocities in Gaza do not help anybody and don't serve the interests of anyone. So I think it's very, very important for the Palestinian Authority to return to Gaza, to be empowered, for Hamas to work with the Palestinian Authority and for us to alleviate what is going on in Gaza first. Our plan is to provide, again, a vision so that for the two-state solution post this horrific period of time.
And Yossi, last question to you. It sounds, perfectly reasonable, but the U.S. has even denied Palestinian officials visas to go to the UN, in fact. The U.S. has denied it.
Huge mistake.
Well, it's unprecedented, I think, because usually anybody, even adversaries of the U.S., can go to the UN. So as Hiba says, all of this is not in the interest of the Palestinians, but is what the U.S. doing in the interest of America, of Israel as well? Because it's becoming a pariah and it's not being stopped or managed by the U.S.
You have to be a genius in order to understand what President Trump wants. And I'm not a genius. But what I can tell you is that although in many areas we are dependent, but not on 100%. And I would like to remind you, and you remember it, we did not ask the Americans a permit in order to go to Oslo.
They didn't even know about it till you'd done it, right?
They didn't know about it. But when I spoke with Mr. Jurigian, who was then the Assistant Secretary of State for the Middle East and the region, and I said, I have such an idea to begin to talk with the PLO. Would it be possible to do it in the United States? And he said, I bless you for the idea, but you can't do it here because it is against the resolutions of the Congress.
That's a very important point that you point out right now. Things have to change. Well, it's great to know that two people working together from different sides of this conflict are still as committed as you are and working so hard. It should give people a lot of energy to try to work this out. So thank you very much for being with us, Yossi Beilin
Thank you for having
and
us.
Hiba Husseini. Thank you very much.